I'm Chef Resa Solomon, St. Louis. Welcome to my kitchen. I am the chef and owner of Bacchanal Taste the Caribbean Lifestyle right here in Ottawa, and you might be used to seeing me at farmers markets, special events, festivals, or maybe you've enjoyed our food for takeout, catering, or even our prepared meals. But today I'm excited to welcome you into my home, because at home is where the heart is. Home is where I love to cook for my friends, for my family, and I get so much inspiration and can build on wonderful memories that I've had of the past, different places I've lived, my family members, and that's something, that heart, that passion, that's what I bring to my food every day. So one of my other passions, though, is farmers markets. Bacchanal is part of farmers markets right across the city, and we started our business essentially with farmers markets, and we're excited to bring a little bit of local into the kitchen with us. So we've got some wonderful things from Ottawa street markets, also from Bacchanal as well, because at Bacchanal we do make our own spice blends and our own sauces, and we're going to be featuring those in a very special menu that we've got planned for you today. We've also got some delicious olive oil and vinegars from the unrefined olive. We love to use olive oil because it's a fantastic healthy oil that we can use in our cooking, and of course adding that wonderful, beautiful taste. We've got a Greek olive oil that we're going to be using today, so very full-bodied. And let me tell you about what we've got planned for our menu. We are going to go with a vegan Caribbean menu. So that's one of our specialties, vegan food, and I'm excited to bring you something that you might not be familiar with. It's called curry Bodi. It's very easy to make, but what exactly is Bodi? Bodi is actually this, look at this is a bean. And this is very popular in Asian, South Asian cooking, and in Trinidad and Tobago, close to half the population is either East Indian, or their families have some part of East Indian origin, including my own. And so that's how the Indian and South Asian cooking kind of is very deep in the Trinidadian style of cooking. So Bodi, this particular vegetable, is also known as Chinese long bean. And you can find it at quite a few major supermarkets, but for sure if you go to Chinese, East Asian, or even some Caribbean specialty stores where they do have fresh vegetables, you're going to find that there. So we're going to be doing a curry Bodi, and we're going to be doing a roti. Yes, I rarely let those secrets out, but today I'm going to do a very simple roti. You can definitely make this one at home, and then we'll have a nice drink to top that off. So let's get to cooking. So like I said, this is our vegan Caribbean meal that we're doing, and we're going to be doing a curry Bodi, which is a Chinese long bean, and we're also going to be doing a very simple roti, or a flatbread. So because of the South Asian, East Indian influence in Trinidad and Tobago, the East Asian influence in Trinidad and Tobago, we definitely have different forms of roti or flatbreads, and Sata Roti is one of the simplest forms. People actually like to eat it for breakfast sometimes with eggs or whatever you normally like to have. You know, curry and rice is popular, but curry and roti is even more popular. If we're going to do something like a paratha, that's something that is basically like the croissant of rotis, and it's layered with butters and flaky, and that's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of planning. Or a stuffed roti like a dal puri, which is stuffed with split peas that are ground. I remember making that as a child. This is not for the faint of heart. But today we're going to do a simple Sata Roti. So what I've got in here is about 2 cups of flour, some baking powder, a bit of salt, and optional, and I like a little bit of sweetness in my roti, so I have a little bit of brown sugar. And I'm going to add to it some hot water or warm water, I'm just going to add enough so that it can combine. So I'm going to try and keep an eye on this, not make it too soggy. But we do definitely want a dough that is, I wouldn't quite call it sticky, but it's not going to be like a super dry dough. Okay, I think that's pretty close to the texture that I want. So you can see here that it's quite soft, but it's not sticking. I'm just going to clean the bowl with the dough, and I'm going to make a little bit of a hole here and introduce just a little bit of oil in here for some moisture. About 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to knead that in, and we're doing this now so that it can rest, and then we can just be ready to roll it out and cook it just as our curry is finishing up. So that's good and ready to rest. So that's what it looks like. You probably are going to get somewhere between 4 and 6 pieces here. I'm going to put this on the stove where it's a little bit warm so that it can rest and rise a little bit while I move on to our curry bodi. So we have here our long bean, and what we're going to do is trim it. I'm going to grab a couple of them so I can trim them at the same time. Of course, we've already pre-washed everything. It's very similar to a green bean. So of course, you can use a green bean, but these are kind of fun. And it's quite traditional in Trinidad and Tobago to have a curry bodi. So I'm just cutting them, just pieces that are about 1 inch long, and you can see it's very, very similar to a green bean. So finish cutting this up. I mean, you don't have to be 100% precise on this. So this is a fairly simple dish, and that's why it's nice and quick and easy, but it's also very flavorful, and you get a nice crunch too from the bodi. But the way that we're going to cook it today, this is just basically a very simple way to make a curry. And so you can, of course, use it with whatever vegetable you prefer. If you want to use something like broccoli or cauliflower. And, something we like to do is we kind of like to throw in the whole farmer's market basket in there and do like a bountiful vegan curry. That's always nice and flavorful. But today we're going to make it a very simple one. You could consider it like a side dish if you want, or you can have it as a meal. It's up to you. I'm going to add in a couple of different things. I like a Madras style curry powder, and depending on the type of curry I'm making, sometimes I mix up my own spices as well. Like when I'm making something like a roasted tomato choka, I don't use curry powder at all. I just use individual spices. But I'm using here a ground cumin, and I'm going to also, in addition to that, I'm adding in some of our spice blend, because that actually is the foundation spice for our savory cooking. And of course, we're going to add in a little bit of salt after we toss them over our left shoulder to rid the bad spirits. So there we go. And so there are different ways to make curry. This is how I make curry. This is the secret of Bacchanal curry. So what I do is I like to smoke my spices. You'll notice that after a short while, it takes on a darker color, because you want to kind of cook that raw flavor out of the curry, and it releases some of the natural oils, and the roasted flavor is really very pleasant. So I'm just going to let that sit and take on some of the heat. And some people add cream to their curries to make it just more of a flavor enhancer, but I like to use a plant-based liquid. So In addition to water, of course, I will use coconut milk or coconut water because I always like, often, almost always, pretty much always enjoy having a bit of that coconut flavor. And you know, really it does depend on the dish as to what type of coconut I'm going to add. I don't want this to be creamy, but I do want it to have a coconut aspect to it. I'm just gonna grab some olive oil. So, and again, the oil is your choice. You can go with olive oil, coconut oil. So you can see it's quite dark now. So now it's time for me to add in, after I've basically turned it into a curry oil. And I'm going to caramelize some nice red onion to go with that. So going back to the oils, I often use a plant-based butter, especially if it's vegan. You can use regular butter or margarine. You can use coconut oil. It's really up to you what you'd like and kind of what flavor you're kind of trying to go for. So I can see that my onions are limp and soft, so those are cooked. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a Scotch bonnet here that will just basically season the curry as it's cooking along. I'd like a little bit of garlic in mine as well. Again, I keep my garlic whole because my husband likes garlic. I like the flavor of garlic, but I don't actually like to chomp on garlic like some people do. So that way everybody gets a little bit of garlic. And now what we're going to do is add in the Bodi. Look at that beautiful bright green color. And I'm just going to keep stirring it so that it takes on the curry spices. And it's a beautiful color with the red onion. Going to give it another little hit of salt. So I've got in here unsweetened coconut water. Just to moisten it a bit. And the other thing that you could add to this to balance out the flavor is to add in some fresh tomato. Today I'm going to go with some peppers. And that is just going to simmer for about 15 minutes or so. A little note about the pepper. My mom loved to cook with Scotch bonnet or scorpion peppers, but my mom was also a little bit of a trickster, and she wouldn't necessarily tell us that it was in there. Oops. And sometimes what would happen is, right now it's pretty firm, but after it's cooking for a while, it does get quite soft, and then it kind of, you can see it kind of blends in with the rest of the food, and oops, surprise! So yeah, that was my mom's little game, the burst pepper. Keep an eye on that pepper. So our dough, you can start to see that there's some air in it, is rising. So while this Bodi is simmering, we are going to head over and roll it out and get ready to cook our Sata Roti. So our dough for our Sata Roti sat for a few minutes, and we can see that it's definitely increased in size, and you can see evidence also of the air bubbles forming, so we're good to go. So what I'm going to do now is just flour a little bit on the bottom so it's not super sticky, and I'm going to pinch off some dough. Flour it again. I'm just rolling it into a circle, and now I'm going to manually just press it out a bit, stretch the dough before I start to roll it. Flour my board a bit, and let's go. Let's see if we're successful. Flipped it over a bit, flour again a bit, push it out. And this dough, the nice thing about this one is it doesn't have to be super thin. A lot of the time with roti, you're looking at like a paper thin dough, and that takes like a little bit more practice. I mean, and we're cooking at home. It's not perfectly round. We don't need to get too excited about it. So now I'm actually using, in addition to making a traditional flatbread in Trinidad, a traditional roti, I'm going to use the tawa. So the tawa is a flat kind of pot or skillet. You can use a non-stick skillet or any type of skillet if you like, but this is traditionally what's used, and you can also use this over an open fire. So it's a great cooking element for things like flatbreads. It gets quite hot, so I have to be a little bit careful here, make sure I don't burn myself. But I thought it would be nice to show the traditional elements. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly put the tawa on there. I can hear it sizzling, so I know it's hot. And I'm going to just brush the top with a bit of oil so that I can flip it quickly. All right, so I actually use a little chopstick to check on the status. Do you see it bubbling up a little bit? So that means, you know, it's cooking. The air is rising. Our sata is still bubbling, simmering on the stove there, so that's good. All right, I'm starting to see, it's kind of like pancakes, right? You start to see the bubbles rising in the air, and it gives you a bit of an indication, okay, maybe you want to flip this. So I'm going to flip it, and you can see how it's cooked on the other side. This is actually somewhat similar to naan. So it's got a nice golden color, and we're looking for it to look like this, a little brown, so that our dough, we know for sure that the dough is cooked. Sometimes the first time that you do it, it might not be exactly where you want it, and that's okay. We just move on to the second one. So it's almost ready. I'm going to just fold over this side so that it doesn't get overcooked, and it's probably ready to go. So, you know, that only took about, you know, maybe 2 minutes. I'm going to now roll out my second one. What I could have been doing actually was, instead of just watching that on the stove, I could have been rolling out the next one while the other one is cooking. That is usually what you want to do in terms of keeping pace, but again, you know, cooking is fun. You're doing it at your own pace, and no real worries here. So again, this was pretty simple, right? It's flour, water, baking powder, a little bit of sugar, and a bit of salt. And then let it sit for a couple minutes while your curry is cooking. All right. I think we'll go one more time around the edges. And let's oil our pan. Creates a flame. All right, there we go. I can hear my Sata Roti is drying up a little bit. I'm going to turn down the stove and add a little bit of coconut water and give it a stir. All right, this looks like it's cooking fairly quickly. There we go. Nice golden brown color. This is going to be so delicious with the Sata Roti. And this is great, not just with curry, but you can try this out with your breakfast as well. All right, I'm going to finish the rest of those later on, but this is good to go on the other side. And now we're going to get ready for our drink and wrap up our delicious vegan Caribbean meal. So So what goes better with a vegan Caribbean meal than a delicious colada? And I say colada because today we'll do a pina colada, but there are banana coladas, pina coladas, there's guava coladas, watermelon coladas, whatever colada you want. A colada is always going to work. And we make ours vegan, of course. There really isn't any reason not to make it vegan, but you can, if you don't want it, if you want to use milk or something, of course you can. So we're going to be using coconut milk. We've got some ice and pineapple ready here in our blender. So I'm going to add in a good dose of coconut milk. I'm also going to add in some coconut water just to kind of intensify the coconut flavor. And of course, rum is optional. I'm going to add in some here. We're going to get ready to blend this. This is going to be a little loud. So simple to make a colada. No need to get any expensive blender mixes or anything like that. Just fruit, coconut milk, coconut water if you want. So you can see our Sata Roti. Look at that. Nice and fluffy, and how the sauces are going to stick to it. It's beautiful. And true Trinidadian style, we're serving it with some sauces or chutneys. So we have a spicy roasted tomato choka here, which picks up some of the flavors that are actually inside of the curry bodi, contrasted with a beautiful sweet and spicy tamarind rum sauce. Both of these are sauces that we make here at Bacchanal. So I just needed to pop that jar, but you can also make some chutneys. So, all right, so a nice coconut and pineapple flavor to offset the spices and the sauces that we have on the side, and a delicious Sata Roti for dipping. We're ready to go with this fantastic vegan Caribbean meal. Cheers, and thank you for joining me in the kitchen with Resa.